What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's Flashback Reviews, where I take movies from the past, break them down, and tell you what I think about it. If you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button. Join Movie Emporium. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's Flashback Reviews, where I take movies from the past, break them down, and tell you what I think about them. If you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button. Join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any video that you watch, including this one. So it's pretty crazy to think that 20 plus years ago now, this movie Memento was released in the theaters. This movie was a milestone for not only kind of the introduction to Christopher Nolan as a director, but it's the introduction of a world where one man's kind of logical reasoning for everything is kind of put on trial because, you know, he forgets everything after 10 minutes. He can't remember what he's doing. He's there to find the killer, but every lead that he gets seems to be a folly and so on and so forth. And on top of that, the story is told backwards while interjecting the beginning of the movie in black and white formula. And it's just a really fascinating movie to watch. It's a movie that you have to watch several times over to really start to connect the pieces. And I think one of the DVD releases of this movie, if I remember right, had an actual from beginning to end cut, where I think if you put like a special code in, you can actually watch this movie literally from the beginning with the gray and black and white sequences to the ending when he shoots Teddy and stuff like that, when Leonard shoots Teddy. And it's doesn't make it for a much better film, because the idea of what Christopher Nolan is doing is he's giving you the ending of this film and he's working his way backwards while still revealing information that would be in the forward of the movie, which is really kind of a cool way to do a movie. And so this movie, released in a limited feature on March 16, 2001, was actually a wide release in May of 2001 or something like that, and is the first true Nolan film that isn't following, that actually got a pretty decent kind of theatrical run. And it was because of stuff like Sundance, where, you know, the companies bought his movie to produce and put onto into the theaters. And I clearly remember when this movie got a lot of buzz through Sundance. I actually was super excited. I follow Sundance, you know, every year since like 97 or whatever it is, when I started really getting into film and whatnot. And I remember the year before this, when there was inklings of stuff about this director and this movie that was coming out that was truly original, that was dealing with time and manipulating time and, you know, using the ideas of characters and trying to work its way backwards to try and explain the story. But it wasn't until Sundance and then the eventual release in May that I truly came in to know who Christopher Nolan was. And the nice thing about somebody being my age is I was able to see this in the theater. I was able to go and experience this for the first time, to truly see the amazement of what Christopher Nolan was and would eventually end up becoming, which was one of the most important directors of the 21st century. And it's just an all-around amazing movie. It really is. You know, it starts out with the very ending of this movie where we see a photograph, and we see a man holding a photograph, and he's actually, for the only time in this movie, reversing his the photograph. So we see the picture of the dead person, which ends up being Teddy, and the photograph actually goes back into the point where it's turning into a blank photograph, and we see, you know, Leonard put into the camera. And then from there on forward, we learn that, you know, Leonard killed Teddy, who ends up being known as John G. And at that point, throughout the rest of the movie, we start working our way backwards, where we see 10-minute clips, because Leonard's condition, which is an amnesia condition, basically only allows him to remember things at 10-minute intervals, which really kind of brings into focus. I've read a lot of theories throughout the years about what exactly Leonard's purpose is in this movie, who he is, how he works, his condition, how much truth there is there to his condition, how much he truly remembers, what is being played against him. But the movie, as it starts playing along, is basically comes to the revelation that anyone he's come into contact with, whether it be the manager of the hotel, or whether it be Natalie, who's played by Carrie-Anne, or whether it actually be Joe Pantoliano, who's like the second main lead in this movie, who's played by, you know, plays Teddy. Every character in this movie manipulates Leonard because Leonard has this condition. You know, you look at many scenes in this movie, you even see it with John G, who Leonard ends up killing, and you just see that pattern of a guy being used because of his condition, like I said, with the hotel manager, so on and so forth, giving him extra rooms. But as the movie plays along, you start to see the pieces start falling into place. What exactly happens? You see, you know, we'll see, say, one scene where he is talking to Natalie, who's just been hit, and she's like, I've been attacked by Dodd, and I'm gonna, you have to go after him. But then you go to like a black and white sequence, which ends up being the beginning of the movie, right before the, when he goes to kill John G. And then it'll go to the next scene, and you realize that, of course, Leonard is the one that ends up hitting Natalie. And what ends up happening is she provoked him because she knows that it will get him to kill Dodd, which ends up protecting her. And what makes it more and more fascinating is as the character arcs move along and as the story goes backwards, you start to learn more and more about this character, about their true intentions, about truly who they are. You see Teddy's character, the Joe Pantoliano character, always saying, "Hey, Lenny," and then you start realizing that he's using Leonard to kill other people. And in the beginning of this movie, he uses John G as a drug dealing situation that causes confusion for Leonard. And it just, how the script is tightly wound, how it is slowly kind of just dissected as you move along, as each piece starts falling into place. It's truly a unique experience, a creative experience, a very just kind of, it's something never really truly seen before. And this is the mind of who Christopher Nolan eventually becomes, because he's a guy that just knows how to construct and deconstruct a scene and just truly kind of twist and turn it so that even though we are confused at first, if we go back and watch that scene, we can truly kind of understand what he's trying to aim for, which is give us the revelations in reverse, but it still make it feel like it's actually continuing the movie forward. And that's why those black and white sequences become so important, because we learn about a character named Sammy Jenkins, who of course is in the movie is played by Stephen Tobolowsky. And also what's also funny is one of the doctors is Thomas Lennon, who of course is the guy from Reno 911. And what makes that story so interesting is not only has everybody heard that story before, but the idea of the story itself and what ends up happening is kind of false in a lot of ways if you think about it. Because if this guy Leonard has this short-term memory loss or whatever, how is he truly able to remember the idea of this guy and so on and so forth, and his wife, and being a diabetic, who in a nutshell is Leonard's story? I guess Leonard somehow remembers this story, but what ends up happening at the end of the movie is Teddy's like, this was your story, you're telling people your story, you almost gave your wife a diabetic coma, you're the one that was at the house when your wife was almost raped and killed, you were the one that caused your wife's death and murder, but you end up killing the guy that raped her and so on and so forth, caused your condition. But there's also kind of leading angles to make you almost believe that his wife was already killed, that he already killed her, and that in fact he had that the Sammy Jenkins that we see, the Stephen Tobolowsky character, was not actually a guy that had a wife. He was just another inmate at this asylum. And there's also kind of leanings where even Leonard's character, who is the Sammy Jenkins character, was actually in the asylum, that he's an escaped asylum convict. And that is just one kind of leaning theoretical opinion about what is actually going on in this movie. And that's what makes this movie truly special, is you can lean towards those directions. You can lean towards the fact that he actually did his purpose and he's being used and abused, or you can go towards the fact that none of this is really true, that everything is just kind of a play on his on his problem of his mental illness. It's a really fascinating thing, and there's other theories that have been put out there that are very unique and very interesting, but it would take forever to talk about them. But that's what this movie does. It gives you scenes, it gives you explanation for those scenes, gives you exposition, never makes you worried about where you're at. Yes, you're going to be confused if this is the first time you've seen this movie, but I never feel like I was out of place in this movie. I always felt like I was on the same page. I knew exactly where he was going with the movie. When the revelations happened, I never felt like betrayed in a lot of ways. And that is what makes Christopher Nolan, at least in his early days, so compelling and so unique as a director, is he is able to and this is with the help of his brother Jonathan Nolan, he's able to fully conform a project that can be truly in the wrong hands, a truly problematic issue of just putting pieces together. Because if you take this movie and you just throw it out there, it could be almost impossible to put back together. But somehow, through meticulous writing, through meticulous directing, through meticulous editing, the crew behind this, with Wally Pfister as the cinematographer, as David Julian as the composer, and just the actors and actresses being on board and willing to go with what Christopher Nolan wants, is truly a remarkable experience. I mean, Guy Pearce, who is one of my favorite actors working still today, has a lot of stuff he has to put on his shoulders, has a lot of weight to put on his shoulders, because he is the main focus of this movie. He's the one being betrayed by everyone. So he has to like put all these pieces together. He has to have all these tattoos, which he has on his body, that literally are a maze of tattoos that really don't lead to anything. They're just tattoos that he put on himself to kind of keep himself from truly getting to the ending of his story. He also has photographs he takes. There's a lot of stuff that Guy Pearce has to do in this movie to truly make this movie work, and it's one of his best roles that he's ever done. You know, it's a role that fortunately didn't get an Oscar nomination, but I truly think it should have, because of how nuanced and how just perfectly designed the character is, and how much weight Guy Pearce put into his role, and to how much he had to build his suspense, to build his story, and it really truly comes out great in the end when you officially see the movie and you see how kind of mesmerizing his performance is. And like I said, it's one of those performances I think should have gotten an Oscar nomination, but at least Memento got a screenplay nomination, which truly kind of put Christopher Nolan into the books. And I wish Guy Pearce had worked with Christopher Nolan later on. You have Carrie-Anne and Joe Pantoliano actually reuniting after The Matrix, which was a movie that's of great importance, one of the most inventive movies of the last 100 years. And they're coming back and they're playing characters that are very despicable individuals. These two actors and actresses are so well put in this movie. They do such a nice job to convey the story, to manipulate the Leonard character, to just kind of make this world so believable but so kind of sad and depressing, that when you see these characters kind of fully develop, you have a despicable nature about them. But the Natalie character, you almost feel guilty for, because her husband or her boyfriend is the John G character that's killed in the beginning of the movie, or at the end of the movie, which is the beginning of the movie. And you see kind of her hurt and angst. You see that she's been abused, and you see that she's playing Leonard, but in the end of it's the end of the movie or the beginning of the movie, however you want to look at it, she realizes what she's doing is wrong, and in the end she ends up helping Leonard, and that's when Teddy, John G's character, the Joe Pantoliano character, gets killed. But once again, Carrie-Anne Moss is a very underrated actress. She never gets the love that she deserves. She's really good in The Matrix. She's really good in the Marvel Netflix shows that she's in, and I think this is her best performance. I really do. I think it's a very understated performance, and it does a really nice job of creating this tension and this weird kind of love story that Leonard gets involved with, that he doesn't know exactly what's happening. And you see her play on his, on him with the beer that they spit in that he ends up drinking, or hiding the pens and stuff like that so he can't write down the information. But you realize at the beginning or end, or however you want to look at it, that she gives him the information that ends up killing Joe Pantoliano's character. And like I said, Joe Pantoliano's Teddy character is a guy that's been using Leonard for about a year now in this movie. He claims, according to his information, that he was the detective that worked on his wife's murder, or whatever ends up happening to Leonard's wife. And he's a guy that is very manipulative. And when you get to the end of the movie, you realize that it's only the beginning of the out of controlness, because when Leonard decides he's going to have Teddy be the true bad guy of the story, end up killing the wrong man, you realize that Teddy doesn't realize exactly what's happening, but he knows that if he doesn't get Leonard under control, something really bad is going to happen with him because of everything that's happened. And when he explains at the end of the movie that how Leonard is this guy who has this condition that's been doing this thing for a while, you really truly realize that Teddy's not a good person. And then like the last real major character in this movie is Mark Boone Jr., who plays the hotel owner. And the reason I brought him up, because he's a lot of fun and he's a very slimy character. He ends up giving Leonard a lot of different rooms. So when Leonard walks into one room, he sees a shaving cream. He doesn't see his other stuff. He's like, you've been deceiving me. And Leonard's like, or the hotel manager's like, yeah, but I told my friend about it, and our manager about it, and we decided to give you another room. And I like Mark Boone Jr. I think he's a fun actor. He's not really in a lot of stuff where he gets main importance, but he's been in stuff like, of course, Batman Begins and stuff like that with Christopher Nolan. And he's one of those actors that is fun to watch in the movie, but he's not really like the major kind of point to the movie itself, but you just like what he does and how he acts and who he is and so on and so forth. So I like Mark Boone Jr. in this movie. I think he's a lot of fun, and he's has some great moments. So everybody's actually really good in this movie, even the smaller bit parts like Stephen Tobolowsky and Thomas Lennon. It's a movie that really shows you the nature of what Christopher Nolan was able to do with a very small budget of like $5-10 million or whatever it was. And to see him kind of go from this movie to Tenet, which is like a $300 million production, to everything that he's done and how creative he's been and how unique he's been, how interesting and experienced he has become, and the way he uses time and stuff like that. To watch a movie like this be the actually best movie I think he's ever done. I love Inception. I love, you know, Dunkirk and Batman Begins and stuff like that. But I think there's something truly special about this film. I think the way it's constructed, I think the way it plays itself out. I think the way it uses reverse motion or uses, you know, idea of time. I think the characters are well written by him and Jonathan Nolan. And I just think it's an overall just a fascinating movie that deals with a lot of interesting subject matters, that really plays into some really interesting theories about what exactly is happening to Leonard. Is he truly telling the true story? Does he remember everything? It's just one of those types of movies that you have to kind of basically come to your own conclusions with, but there are kind of, you know, leaning Easter eggs or leaning hints to what exactly he is having to face. So with that said, the movie was actually a pretty big hit for when it came out. It did like, you know, 20 or 30 million dollars, so it was a big hit. It's not like, you know, Batman Begins or Dark Knight big, but it was, as an indie film that was picked up by whoever was picked up by Sundance, like New Market or something like that, or whatever it was called, for like a couple $1 million. I think it was a huge boon for what Christopher Nolan became, and I think it's a huge boon for filmmaking and the ideas of, if somebody has the creative talent and the spark and they have a way of getting around a story that could be truly confusing, and they somehow make it work, and 20 years later it's still a fascinating, fantastic, well done, interesting thriller that is not, you know, anything that you've ever seen before. And even films today, there's a lot of films that are not able to even pull off what it's able to do 20 years ago. So I mean, that's all I can really say on the movie. It's just a fantastic movie, but it's something that you have to truly kind of sit down and think about. But I think if you haven't seen it before, give it a shot. If you don't like it, give it a shot again. Maybe things will start clicking in. But if you've seen this movie, you obviously like it, or you wouldn't have watched it when it came out. But like I said, it's one of my favorite movies of the last 20 years. It has some great acting, some great direction, some great editing, some great cinematography, you know, songs and score and stuff like that. And it's a good thriller, so it really is. But yeah, that's it. That's gonna be my take on this film, which of course is Memento. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree this is like his best film? I know a lot of people like other films of his, but I think this is the best. So anyways, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you liked the video, awesome, hit that like button, and as always, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.